Look, I think it is very much in the interest of America to see regime change. I don't think there's any redeeming the Ayatollah. He is filled with hatred. That's what we're dealing with, religious fanatics. So it is unquestionably in America's interest to see a secular regime.
They're not targeting the regime. They could literally take the civilian leadership down, I believe, if they wanted to. I think they have hands off of that. I know other people would like to see that happen, but you got to think through the strategy and what the implications of that are.
Senator Ted Cruz and retired General Jack Keane on Sunday Morning Futures today on the future of Iran's leadership. We reported earlier that U.S. officials tell Fox News that Israel had a plan to eliminate Iran's supreme leader, but was waved off by President Trump. Let's bring in retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert. General Teichert, clearly Israel has known where a lot of Iran's top leadership was. They were able to bomb some of the residence buildings and take out at least 3 of Iran's top military leaders. Probably could have done the same thing with the Ayatollah if they had wanted to, or if President Trump had given them permission. Would you agree?
John, I think Israel is taking a tact right now where it's more indirect in the threat to the regime. If we rewind 2 months ago, the reason the Ayatollah came to the negotiating table with the United States to begin with is because economic conditions are so dismal in Iran that he saw a threat to his regime from within. And now, based on what we've seen in the last 3 days, especially the targeting of energy and economic sites, further puts the Ayatollah regime at risk. And in doing so, it makes it more likely that he'll realize that it's worth it to give up his nuclear ambitions.
Yeah, because Israel has been targeting some of the fuel infrastructure, some of the oil fields. The Iranians are going to have a tough time making money over the next few months or even years. And that is going to foment an awful lot of unhappiness among the Iranian people.
John, there's already a whole lot of dissatisfaction because of economic conditions in Iran. And right now, Israel's Air Force has permissive environment within Iran to strike targets at will with no stopping them. And that will only allow them to go after those energy and economic targets that make conditions worse, such that hopefully conditions will arise within Iran, either to drive the Ayatollah to the negotiating table or ultimately to threaten him with regime change.
Kind of interesting. I mean, Iran is reportedly behind a couple of death threats against President Trump. And yet, if our reporting is correct and the Israelis came to President Trump and said, look, we have a plan to eliminate the Ayatollah, President Trump said no. That speaks volumes about what's going through his mind.
John, things have been spectacularly well planned and executed by the Israeli military for the last 3 days. And frankly, while they could go after the Ayatollah, it creates uncertain conditions going forward. And right now, because of the permissive environment and the ability to strike targets, I believe that President Trump and ultimately Prime Minister Netanyahu realize that the best thing to do is stay the course and tackle the targets that they have been tackling for the last 3 days to great success.
Prime Minister Netanyahu says that he's protecting not only his country, but even the United States in these attacks on Iran. Listen to what he told Bret Baier.
Some of these strikes have targeted Iranian leadership, military, nuclear scientists, and other leaders. So is regime change part of the effort here?
Could certainly be the result because the Iran regime is very weak. I think it's basically left with 2 things. It's plans to have atomic bombs and ballistic missiles. That's basically what Iran has. They certainly don't have the people.
He went on to say that Iran was developing ballistic missiles with an 8,000-kilometer range. enough to launch a missile from Iran and hit the east coast of the United States. Israel, would you agree, is doing the U.S. a favor through these attacks?
John, absolutely. We owe Israel a debt of gratitude because an Iranian nuclear program is not just an existential threat to Israel, but it is to all of humanity and very specifically to the United States. And again, the Prime Minister's willingness and capability to go after the nuclear program and to successfully destroy so many of the Iranian ballistic missiles has been very successful in not only protecting Israel, but the United States as well.
All right, Brigadier General John Teichert retired from the U.S. Air Force. General, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.